Folks, did you expect that? As always, folks, welcome back to an episode of the Locked On Pitt podcast, your daily podcast covering the Pittsburgh Panthers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And folks, I'm Nick Farabaugh, River Pittsburgh Sports. Now, call games at WPTS Radio, and I'm a production assistant at ACC Network. And Pitt goes down to Chapel Hill and defeats UNC for the biggest win for the Panthers of the season. That's now their third straight conference win. We'll talk about all the stuff that happened, the significance of this game, and where things are going for Pitt this season after the biggest win of the year for Jeff Capel and company. It's all coming up on Locked On Pitt.
You are Locked On Pitt, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Panthers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back to the Locked On Pitt podcast. As always, thank you for making the Locked On Pitt podcast your first listen every day. We'll always appreciate that. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, comment. I need all that feedback. And if you're listening, leave a review, do all that great stuff as well. Well, folks, I'm not sure if anyone expected this. Pitt knocks off UNC in their own house, 76-67. At one point, the Panthers led by as much as 21 points. UNC brought on a late surge, but Pitt survived it in the late game. Just an unbelievable game for this Pitt team because, wow, there's so much good to love about this game. Pitt did so much right. And this was their best basketball game of the year. Really. It was their best basketball game of the entire year. And it felt so cohesive. It really did feel like such a growing point for Pitt. And man, there's so much good to talk about. And here's the thing. Pitt now has equaled their conference wins from last year, and they put up a game where every single starter gets into double figures. This was really a game where everyone got involved and everyone helped out. And it started, I think, I know we'll get to the offensive part of this all. And of course, the offense was big, and there were certain aspects of it that were maddening still because Pitt can't seem to get their offense completely straight and right. But more importantly, the defense tonight. I mean, the defense played at such a high level. When Pitt wasn't playing well at the beginning of the game, when they were down, when it was 12-8, it felt like what Pitt had to do was drag this team to the mud. And that's exactly what they did. But that's the most important part of it all. Dragging the team into the mud is exactly what this Pitt team is built on. They're predicated on it. That's how they win their games. Today, they didn't have to drag UNC into the mud for all that long, but they kept UNC in the mud, and Pitt themselves climbed out of that mud. And that was the big thing. When Pitt's offense wasn't playing well, and there were absolutely, and I mean this, there were absolutely areas in where this Pitt team was bad offensively. The beginning of the game, they really looked disjointed. In the start of the second half, they didn't look strong, but the defense kept going. And it was such a beautiful defensive effort. And I can't give enough praise to the guys off the bench because I think that's a storyline in this game. At different times, Gee, Hugley, and Burton all got into foul trouble, and Hugley and Gee especially both had to come off the court, and at times both of them were off the court. There was a stretch there where both of them were off the court, and listen, UNC didn't even dent the lead. Pitt kept everything going, and it kept going strong. That's something for me that when you look at Pitt, it's huge. I mean, that's absolutely huge. As it stands right now, Pitt is 100% getting the contributions they need from their bench. The scoring wasn't great. I get it. They only had 4 points off the bench. They didn't need it, though. And give credit to Will Jeffers. He really was big tonight. I thought this was a huge game for Will Jeffers. 19 quality minutes. Not just good minutes, extremely high quality minutes for Will Jeffers. Whenever Gee got into foul trouble, this guy came in and picked up the slack. In the first half, he gave them 5 huge first half minutes where he got a block and 2 steals. But that wasn't all. That second half where Jeffers came in, and Jeffers was able to steady the storm. And then as they start to come back, as UNC starts to rattle it back and Walton gets things going, who gets the big shot? Yeah, it's Will Jeffers that makes the big shot. Huge. In the stat sheet, won't look super sexy. It won't look super flashy. But there doesn't have to be anything in that regard, because Will Jeffers was such an all-around boon to this team defensively, and he was really good. In fact, breaking down their defense more and more, how about the Pitt transition defense? I mean, this is a team in UNC that loves to get out, but they only got 5 fast break points, and Burton forced 3 or 4 charges today, and a few really good ones in transition. This has been the area I think Pitt has improved most upon since they started the season. Their transition defense continues to get better and better. I look at Jamarius Burton, and I actually break down what I see there. Is there a better transition defender in the ACC at the guard spot right now? This dude has been great all year in transition defense. And when Pitt was really bad in transition D early in the year, Burton, as he started to come in more and more, has made his impact felt. Pitt just felt like they were very good and in sync. It felt like everything was working. And Noah Collier, I think we have to shout him out. 6 quality minutes from Collier. Drawing a charge, getting a real key dunk, playing really few key possessions defensively against Bacot, of all people. Noah Collier, I don't know what his ceiling is. I don't know where you look at him as completely. What I do know is that he's growing into a nice bench player that can give you quality minutes. And the fact that they had 2 quality bench players in Will Jeffers and Noah Collier today defensively was huge for them. It gave them flexibility they didn't have. It gave them a different type of method, and it put a method to their madness. And even when Gee and Hugley got into foul trouble and had to go to the bench, it gave Pitt a lifeline. And those 2 guys were huge today. But there were also other guys that were obviously huge, Theo Horton and John Hugley. We'll talk about them. But first, let me let you know about BetOnline. Football might be over for this season, but basketball is in full steam for both pro and college hoops. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land, BetOnline.net is your #1 spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds, right to the Olympic coverage and information. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. Bet online, where the game starts. All right, folks, welcome back to the Locked On Pitt podcast, as we're continuing to talk about Pitt's big 76-67 win over North Carolina today. One of the biggest wins of the season for Pitt. And we talked a lot about what I think was key in terms of their defensive effort. And I think Femi Odukali continues to play well there. Mohamedou Gee, of course, continues to play at a high level there. 2 more blocks for Gee today. But I want to talk about the story of the game because I think he was the story of the game, and it was John Hugley. John Hugley continues to roll, and he had that rough stretch. Yes. And here's the thing. I think that when you look at John Hugley and that 3-game stretch, the 2 VT games and then the Florida State game where he struggled, he has responded to all the trials and tribulations of essentially a freshman season for him. And as he's grown into his body more and his team more and his role more and the double teams, and he understands what's coming on, he's grown more and more and more. And he went up against one of the best big men in the ACC today in Armando Bacot and made Bacot look like crap. To be quite honest with you, Armando Bacot looked like crap tonight. And largely, at large, I honestly feel like it was largely due to what John Hugley did. In the offensive production, it's going to be obvious. You have to look at the offensive production, of course. But let's also understand. Not only was the offense great, this guy made the defensive plays necessary, moving his feet, being a mobile defender, being really good at not letting the screen game kill him. It killed him early on in the first 2 possessions. The first 2 points came off of John Hugley in the screen game, and he wasn't able to respond to it. But as things kept going on, he was able to respond to it. He was able to get set. He was able to duck under it. He was able to find new innovative methods, and he was able to play his game. UNC thought that they could bully Hugley one-on-one with Bacot because they thought Armando Bacot was going to be able to do it. Turned out he wasn't. And that's the thing with me, is that John Hugley is just growing into a really exciting player. He's essentially a freshman. He's already playing like this. So let's keep it a buck here. Let's 100% keep it a buck here. John Hugley's ceiling could potentially be all ACC. And then you go to the offensive end, where they're running a lot more pick and roll, and the pick and roll action continues to improve, and Hugley's a big reason for it. And John Hugley going up against Bacot, because Hugley is 280, he's an absolute truck. But Armando Bacot, it's not like this dude is not built either. He's 6'10", 240. And yet, John Hugley backed him down in the paint like it was nothing. There are very few players, and obviously, you know, Bacot is going to be one of the best bigs he's going to face all year. And John Hugley just took it to him. The innovative ways to use his flexibility. I think that's something with Hugley that's very underrated. He's very flexible and able to use that pivot foot to get around on the post-ups. His jumper was working to a degree in this game as well, and that made him a little bit more dangerous. And obviously, the big, matchup for him is going to be Mark Williams on March 1st here at the Pitt when Duke comes to town. We'll see how big he is then. But to take someone like Bacot and make him look like he did, I mean, my goodness. All you can do is praise the man. And by not doubling him, they allowed Hugley to showcase that. Showcase what he could do. And John Hugley continues to grow into a bigger role. And Pitt, honestly, I also thought a really good sign today, only out-rebounded by 1. Pitt did a really nice job on the boards today. Last year against North Carolina, this was a huge issue. They got crushed on the boards. But Pitt fought really hard on the boards today, and they got a few really huge boards. I thought that were real game changers. And the defense, again, showcasing up big. Only 4 second chance points for the Tar Heels today. They had 11 offensive rebounds. So it's huge for Pitt. And John Hugley was a big part of that. Really excited to see where Hugley goes from here. He's really playing at a high level. And also, there's just so many guys you could talk about. But Femi Odukale in this game, what a roller coaster of a game for Femi Odukale. 9 assists, that's a career high for him. 7 turnovers, though, is also a career high. And it was such an up and down game for him. But his three-point shot is starting to come along. His free throw shooting is starting to come along. He's starting to understand a little bit more what he can do. If he can get more into that off-ball 2-3 role, I think he's a 2 or a 3 in his natural state. You get him into a 2 or 3 and let him kind of judge it out and feel everything out and go for it. I think what you can get in Femi Odukale is a really solid player. And clearly, if this is going to continue and his three is going to continue to go up, I think it's up now to like 36% shooting from downtown, which is really good for him compared to last year. We're starting to see the growth in Femi Odukale's game, and not just in the offensive end. We're seeing him play really good defense. He's crashing the boards. He's really turning into an all-around type player. If he can take the next leap, right, the next step, and go up a rung and become a real top 3 rotation player in the ACC, Pitt has something brewing here in terms of their natural foundation. Because they have John Hugley, they have Jamarius Burton, they have Ithio Horton, they're going to get Nike Sabande back. They won't get Mogi back, which is unfortunate. But if Femi Odukale can take that leap next up, would be huge for Pitt because they'd have another wing. I think they'd be able to do different things with him. And he's such a versatile defender, and he's really growing into his role. And I really think he's been real big. There's a few more points I do want to make on guys like Ithio Horton. I really do want to shout out Jeff Capel as well in all this, but we'll go to a quick break here, folks. Unlock the Pit. Be back in a moment. All right, folks, welcome back to the Locked On Pitt podcast, your daily podcast for the Pittsburgh Panthers, as we continue to talk Pitt's big win over North Carolina here tonight. And here's the thing about what I saw in Jeff Capel's coaching. I thought there were good things tonight. And the coaching points that I've been kind of hitting on is things that I wanted to see the team improve on. And they've improved in areas. Free throw shooting, they've really improved in conference play. Spacing, ball movement. The pick and roll game is just unbelievable. I mean, they're going to be a much better on-ball screen team than they have been in forever under Jeff Capel. The screen game is actually working for Pitt right now. And it's opening up a lot of things. And partially that could be Ithio Horton, but the team's playing as a cohesive unit right now. And that's something. But also, he's putting his players in a good position to win. Now, there's still some things that I question, like why Femi Odukale was the main ball handler for about 2 minutes there at the end, and UNC started to come back as Odukale kept turning it over against the pressure. But also, the late game coaching now, this is now 2 games in a row where I've been really impressed by his late game coaching. The first of those was the NC State game where he fouled with up 3. It's a smart decision. It's the right decision. And he did what he needed to do. He helped his team, and he trusted his team to shoot the free throws, and they backed him up. But today, they get it down to 6 points, and you're working against the press, and you come up in the first 2 or 3 possessions, and you just kind of pass it around. You don't really know what you're doing. So Capel takes the timeout that Hubert Davis took and uses it to his advantage. Draws up sets for John Hugley with no Bacot in there. He knew what he could do. And that's the point here. He put John Hugley in the perfect position to win. There were a few really nice dishes. I thought Odukale had a real nice dish down low, and then Hugley obviously getting the and one was huge. But Pitt did a nice job of exploiting a mismatch. With no Bacot in there, and even with Bacot in there, it would have been, probably to Hugley. But still, clear mismatch was with no Bacot, you're able to exploit that. They were, and they attacked it. And they got John Hugley down low for a few really key baskets late. And that's what powered them here. It was huge for Pitt. Absolutely huge for Pitt. Now, some coaching points, you wish they could get it in easier against that full court pressure. It really was a chore for them. It has been a chore for them all year, even going back as far as West Virginia when they went there in November. And so this has been an issue for Pitt kind of pretty consistently all year, and it's probably not going to change. I think they need another ball handler, but that was really solid from Jeff Capel, and I'm excited to see what he's doing with this screen game because this team's cohesive and they're improving as a unit. They're better than their sum parts right now, and that's the good thing. And Ithiel Horton as well has been huge, absolutely huge, averaging over 20 points per game in the last 3 games. He gets another 19 today. He was really feeling it from downtown. The 5 of 5 3-pointers. Ithiel Horton has been such a breath of fresh air. Played all 40 minutes for this team, even after he admitted in the last game that, hey, my conditioning probably isn't up to the level it needs to be. He still came out and played at a really high level. And Horton made key baskets whenever they needed him to. Whenever they needed him to. It was huge for Ithiel Horton to start figuring out, and you can see how he's starting to improve. And the thing with Ithiel Horton that I've just noticed is in past years he's always seemed tentative to just let it go. Whenever he's open in the corner, he just doesn't let it rip. He's letting it rip now. He feels the space. He does great with ball movement. I mean, he's becoming a great passer, but he also understands spacing. There was one sequence where Pitt got really lucky. It was between Horton and Femio to Cali, and they both had passed up open shots. But Horton moved himself from the wing to the corner, and he essentially opened up a three from the corner and drained it. And I think that was a huge play in this game. And it was just a kind of a encapsulation of the type of player we're seeing Ithiel Horton grow into. A really smart and cerebral player on the floor. And the biggest thing for him has been improving himself as a defender, because the biggest issue was you felt like you were trading defense for offense with Horton out there. But now it feels like Horton's done a lot better job on defense, and it's been really big for him. It's been really big for his stock. That's been huge for Pitt. Pitt continues to grow and grow and grow into themselves. And as they continue to grow and kind of matriculate together and grow together, there's a lot of things that look good and a lot of players that look good doing it. Mo Gee has been a great find in the portal. It's so much fun to watch the guy come down, hit a three, be able to create shots off, have a great length to get in big time boards, get a block and dunk on the other end. He's been huge this year, and I love to see what Mo Gee's done this year, and he's been huge for this team. But also, you look at another player like Jamarius Burton. Again, I've talked about it to a degree. His transition defense is unbelievable. I mean, it really is, but also his ability to hit the mid-range jumper, his ability to be a sniper in those clutch moments. He's shooting over 40% from downtown on conference play. He's such a steady presence from the free throw line. And Pitt has just been able to kind of dissipate it out throughout the team. He's their primary ball handler, right? He should be. Jamarius Burton should be their primary ball handler moving forward. And it's just been so great to see what Pitt has done throughout the year and has grown into. And this game is kind of the encapsulation of all of that. This team still has issues, and this was the best they played, and a lot of things can come back. Are they going to shoot as well from downtown as they did today? I don't think they're going to shoot 10 of 17 from downtown every game. This is one of their best pure shooting performances of the game. But there was a lot of things that led to that. The process of it, getting the good passing, understanding spacing, using their sets, following what Jeff Capel set out to do to them, just understanding the strategy, and they understood what to do in this game. And Carolina didn't look particularly good, but Pitt dragged them into the mud early, and they never let them get out of it. And that was really big. Now, other things you'd want to clear up, 18 turnovers. Obviously, you'd rather not have 18 turnovers in this game. I think that's going to be a big thing for Pitt, an emphasis that they're going to have to improve upon. That was an issue that had creeped up for them, and the only reason they were able to offset those was because their defense was maybe the best it's been all year. but you're not going to be able to let that fly against most teams. And so against Georgia Tech this Saturday, you're going to want to clean that up. That's going to be a big game for Pitt. Georgia Tech. This is going to be a big one to win. They can get win number 7, 4 in a row for the first time ever under Jeff Capel, and that would be huge for Pitt as well. But you look at it, and the overall significance of this is, one, Jeff Capel's probably going to be back next year. He's going to be back. We talked about the evaluation process. This was a big upset. Heather Lake was on tap. We saw her in the pictures pregame. She was here watching the game, and Jeff Capel and his squad put up the best performance in front of her. I think he's going to be back, get another thing. And here's the thing also, Pitt, talking to guys like Noah Batchelor, who had decommitted from Memphis. They're going to have, obviously, 2 or 3 spots probably open via the portal. And so this late surge on and off the court and how they're going together and how they're meshing together and how the team atmosphere is growing, this team is starting to look like a legitimate team that can actually sell something for next year. And you could sell the Mo Gee role, and hey, we did this for Mo, and we can do this for you. And there's things you can sell now in the portal and on the late recruiting trail. And then for 2023, you can sell those things as well. So there's a lot of good things you could sell with a late season surge. That this thing is going up, and that we might not be a rebuild. You could be one of the missing pieces. That's the thing here, and that's the overall significance. Jeff Capel's going to be back, and now as they continue to grow here, and if they can finish this season strong or semi-strong at the very least, Pitt can give you a chance to do these things, and we have stuff to sell you. And that's another thing that Jeff Capel is going to get from his best coaching job here at Pitt so far. And this is a huge win for the Panthers, and it's really a team performance, as we talked about in just all these different scenarios. All right, folks, as always, thank you for listening today to Locked on Pitt. As always, we'll be back tomorrow talking more about Pitt. And as always, as we ended off, folks, hail to Pitt.